Hello, this is Ree. I'm finally going to answer, do I really have to wear eye primer? Can't I use concealer? And two other questions. Why does my eyeshadow just melt off my face? And why does my eyeshadow sometimes look cakey or creasy? Well, in the 20 years I've been a makeup artist, I have found that about 80% of all makeup woes are because of eyeshadow prep. And I know that sounds a little boring, but try it, trust me. And if you don't like it, you can yell at me. But what product do you use? Well, you're gonna hear this a lot from me today, but it really depends. It depends on a lot of different things, such as your makeup goals and most importantly, your skin condition. So if you have oily skin or if you have dry skin, you should prepare your eyes completely different. And I'm gonna show you how on my left side, how to prepare your eyes if you have oily skin, and on my right side, how to prepare your skin if you have dry skin. And you're gonna probably be surprised at how different they are. I feel like this is something that isn't talked about enough. So if you have oily skin, a lot of times what happens is people get a little confused and they think, oh, I have oily skin, I don't need to put on an eye cream or a moisturizer. But really what happens is your skin needs to have a proper balance of oil and water. So if you don't have enough oil, then such as dry skin, then you need to find a way to encourage oil production. If you have too much oil and you have very oily eyelids, then you need to find a way to hydrate your skin with water to encourage that proper balance. Also, it's important to make sure that you're not using harsh cleaners. That can actually cause over oil production, so it could be causing the opposite. So if you haven't had a good conversation with an esthetician or a dermatologist, if you're having extremely oily or extremely dry skin, then for sure I encourage you to do that. But the most important thing is making sure you're getting rid of your makeup every night and moisturizing or hydrating pretty heavily at nighttime. And then in the morning, you'll want to find a very light gel or light serum to help give your skin that nice balance so that it'll be really easy to put your prep on and your eyeshadow on. So the first thing I recommend is doing a little bit of micellar water. It just helps get rid of any excess oil or dirt, or if you've done your foundation and concealer first, then it helps get rid of anything that has fallen on there, which leads me to a question that I get asked. Do I do my eyeshadow first, or do I do the foundation and concealer and contouring? What do I do first? Well, it really depends. If you're gonna have a real eyeshadow heavy look, then I recommend doing that first, because then it'll be really easy to sweep that micellar water and get rid of any excess fallout from the eyeshadows. But if you're just gonna have a real nice, easy eye look, maybe just an eyeliner, maybe just one shadow, and it doesn't really have to last all that long, then go ahead and do your foundation first. So I'm gonna go ahead and sweep a little bit of micellar water on, and you just wanna pat that on that area very nice and gently. And I like the Garnier because it is a budget one, it doesn't have any oil in it, and it literally smells like roses. Now, if you have oily skin, I do recommend going ahead and sweeping that over your eyebrow, because a lot of things can hide on that brow, especially dirt and oil. And now we're gonna go ahead and add an eye gel or an eye serum. Now, I rotate all the time the different ones that I put on. I generally have All About Eyes. Somehow it always makes its way back into my eye kit. But today I'm going to be using Bright Eyes, which I really like. It's light, it really helps with any darkness or puffiness, and you're gonna put it all in that eye area. Now, here is the difference with dry skin versus oily skin, is that for dry skin, I like to use my fingers, or you can use anything else, but I tend to use my fingers for dry skin because your hands have just a hint of natural oil in them. Even if you've already washed them and they're super clean, they tend to carry just a little bit of oil. So with dry skin, it can actually be a good thing, and the heat also tends to help your skin absorb things. But with oily skin, I definitely do not recommend adding your hands. Now, you can go ahead and try it different ways. Maybe one day try it with your hands, the other day try it with something else. But with very oily skin, it's just one added thing that could cause your eyeshadow to not last that long. So I'm going to use a concealer brush, but places like Sigma, they actually have eye cream brushes. So that would be something that you might want to look into if you have very oily skin. And we're just gonna tap it on, and you want barely anything, especially with oily skin, but you want it to just very, very, very lightly cover that whole area. And we're going from your lash to your brow is the area you want. And if you've already done your concealer, then that's a totally separate thing. But if you're gonna do your concealer, I do recommend going anywhere inside your orbital bone with that eye cream. Okay, we're finally ready to answer the question, do I have to wear primer? Can't I just wear concealer as a primer and won't it be just as good? Or can I just heat roll the powder on my eyes and call it done? Well, I know you're gonna be shocked when I say it depends, but it really does. It depends on a lot of different things. First of all, what are your eyeshadow goals? Are you gonna wear eyeshadow that day? If not, then just heat roll that powder and you're good to go. However, what if you have this awesome eyeshadow look? Well, what if you have oily skin? Or what if you have hooded eyes or watery eyes? Or your eyeshadow just never ever stays? Well, if that's the case, then it's probably going to be for your benefit to invest just a little bit into a good eye primer. Now, if you have dry skin, that's a maybe. Maybe you can use a concealer as long as the concealer is right for you. So if you like how the concealer wears on your face, you feel like it doesn't emphasize your lines and wrinkles, then that means it's probably the right product for you, because definitely no concealer is made the same. So if you like it and you feel like it wears well, then actually it could be of benefit to you, because a concealer actually generally has a little bit of hydration in it. So that is something that's really good for dry skin, because then it'll keep your eyes looking hydrated and plump and pretty the rest of the day. So that being said, I'm gonna go ahead and show you on, again, the right side, how to prep your eyes if you have dry skin with a concealer, and on the left, how to prep it if you have oily skin with a primer. And I'm gonna show you a couple different tricks, and I do recommend that if the first time you try it doesn't work, then tweak it a little bit and see what happens. I'm gonna give you some ideas on how to do that. So first we're gonna start with the dry side, or the concealer side. So there are lots of really good concealers. Actually, the Maybelline FitMe is a pretty decent concealer. I usually tend to have that in my makeup bag for dry skin people. However, I'm in love with Tarte Shape Tape. It's really good, and since it's thick, what you want to make sure you do is put it on very thin. With any concealer or primer, your goal is to put it on all over your eyes, but a very, very thin layer. So what I recommend for dry skin is different than oily skin, is that you can use your fingers or you can use a nice little sponge. So let's get started. So we are gonna put just 1 or 2 dots to start with on the lid. So I'm gonna put just 2 dots, and where you wanna cover is basically, if you could go from the tip of your nose to your brow, and then the same, that's usually where you're gonna put your eyeshadow. So anywhere you're gonna put your eyeshadow is definitely where you're gonna wanna put that concealer or your primer. So we're gonna start off with our fingers, make sure they're clean, and we're just going to pat, and make sure you are really using a light touch. Now, if you're having a hard time using a light touch, then you could use either I'm in love with this. This is called Base Blue, and do you see this awesome tip? I mean, it is made for concealer or primer. But Base Blue Airsponge, and make sure it's wet, and you're just going to tap it on. And we need just a little bit more to cover the area. So I'm gonna do just a little itty bitty bit here and a little itty bitty bit there. Maybe just there. Okay. And again, we're just gonna tap. And the little bit of water, sometimes for dry skin, is really nice too because it helps hydrate it and it goes on a little bit smoother. You can also, if you're noticing a tough time, if you're using a concealer brush with drier skin, you can also just lightly mist it with water, and that would help too. So do you see how well that's covered? We're good to go. Okay, next step, primer on the left side or the oily side. So many people ask me, oh my goodness, what's your favorite primer? And to be honest with you, I have a lot of favorite ones. The one that always gets back in my makeup bag is the Urban Decay Primer Potion. It just works. It lasts all day. You don't have to worry about what you put on top of it. It is going to not rub off. It's wonderful. Now, once I hit 40 something, I had to get the anti-aging one, but if you have oily skin, for sure stick with the original Primer Potion. Now, if you have very oily skin, you might want to look at the Bare Minerals Primetime Eyelid Primer. That is wonderful. It will last. Not only is it waterproof, but it also has ingredients in there that help absorb oil throughout the day. So that is really great if you have an issue with your eyeshadow just melting off your face. Now, the one that I use a lot that is budget friendly is the NYX HD. I use it a lot with photo shoots and sometimes even bridal parties because it will last. Not quite, but almost. It's a good contender with my Primer Potion. So this is a really nice budget friendly. And again, we want it to be super light. So we're gonna put just a few taps. And this is not as thick as my concealer, so you need that. And I'm gonna go ahead and apply it with a concealer brush, and we're just going to pat it down. And again, you want to apply it anywhere you're gonna put your eyeshadow. And you want to apply it super thin. You do not want any cakiness. And now that we've got a really nice layer, we're going to let that oily side dry. Now, what do? Some makeup artists say that you have to set it with powder. And my personal preference is I notice that it does help, especially if you're gonna use a lot of vibrant colors. Sometimes what happens even throughout the day is if you don't set it with powder, I've noticed that sometimes it can just be more pigmented in certain areas. So setting it with powder will really help. However, if you have super dry skin and you're really having a hard time with it not looking cakey, then you could skip it. Or if you're not really that concerned about a super heavy eyeshadow look, then you can just leave it. But I do love my heat rolling powder. If you haven't seen that episode yet, definitely heat roll your powder when you're setting your eyeshadow. Or if you actually have very oily skin, then do not use your hands. And we're gonna do something a little different. And we're just going to use a fluffy brush and you're just gonna put it on super thin. I really hope that these techniques helped you. Over the years, I've just found that they really make a huge difference with how the eyeshadow wears, and I hope it helps. If it does help, please drop me a comment and like and subscribe so that you can get other tips and things like that. I hope you have a good day. Bye.